The following program sponsored by Adams Financial Concepts.
About money, a different approach to investing you won't hear anywhere else. Your host, Mike Adams, is a registered investment advisor and works with investment portfolios exceeding over $100,000 in net worth, and has a proven track record of managing long-term investments surpassing the markets in the long term. The information shared on the following program is for educational purposes only, and any investment advice given may not be suitable for all investors. And now, here's Mike.
So, we're about to talk about money, and we're going to be talking about cyber attacks. We're going to be talking about hoaxes, but we're going to sweeten it all with my guest today, who's going to talk about chocolate too. So don't go away. We've got a lot to cover. There was a book written by Edward Dolnick called The Forger's Spell. It's a true story and considered by some, at least up until this century, as the biggest hoax of the 20th century. It's a true story about Johann Vermeer, Nazis, and that hoax of the 20th century. Now, Vermeer was a painter from the Netherlands, Holland in those days, in the mid-1600s, and he wasn't very well known. He didn't paint that many paintings. You know him because you've probably seen his painting or read about his painting or seen even a movie made about it, The Girl with a Pearl Earring. Now, he was almost forgotten for 200 years. And then in 1881, a little-known collector bought a painting for pennies. You know, in today's dollars, he would have bought the painting for about $200. It was grimy and rough-handled, but as it cleaned up, that painting turned out to be The Girl with a Pearl Earring. Purchase, it'd be like you bought that painting today for $200, cleaned it up, and found you had a masterpiece. Today it would go for multiple $1 million, maybe over $100 million. But by the turn of the century, that little painting, by the turn of the 19th into the 20th century, that painting had a dramatic increase in price. In today's prices, probably several $100 million. That was the way that painting had gone, from $200 to millions of dollars. But in the 1930s, there was a painter in Holland by the name of Han van Meeringen, and he decided to forge Vermeer paintings. And it's like when you're a forger, if you're a really good forger, it's like being a name dropper. You know, if you drop a lot of names, people figure out you're just a name dropper. But if you just maybe use one quote or one sentence about somebody once in a while, people begin to feel that you may know that person, even though you have no idea who they are. Well, actually, you'd have to have an idea of who they are. But in painting, almost every expert acquires a feel for the artist, and it's a feeling that runs almost too deep for words. It's real, but it's very subtle. And in art, we don't really spend a lot of time contemplating art. We look at it, we feel it, we know and how we feel about it. And strangely, the closer the forger comes to an exact copy, the more uneasy experts become, even if they can't articulate why. So the painter who wants viewers to be emotionally involved needs to leave at least some work to do to collaborate. So you find yourselves hooked. It's almost what it is, but not quite. It's very, very similar, but not quite. It's almost, you have that feel. And that's what he did. Van Meeringen sold those fake Vermeers to Nazi occupiers because in the 1930s, the Nazis invaded Germany. And he sold them to Göring and to Hitler and to all the German Nazis as they came in. They were thrilled to have those paintings that were actually forgeries. The experts of the day, almost all those experts, declared the forgeries to be originals. Nobody knew. Even today, we don't know much about Vermeer at all. Only 6 paintings are really credited to him. But Van Meertegen made dozens of paintings that became and were ascribed to by the experts as being his work. And he got huge prices for them. You know, that's the hoax of the century, maybe, last century. The millions of dollars in the 1930s. There'd be billions of dollars today. Maybe it was $1 billion that he got. But he got a huge amount of money for forged paintings. You know, if you look today and what's gone on, we came through early this century in the Madoff Ponzi scheme, you know. And if you look even around Seattle, you know, Mercer Island Church had Steve Close, who promised returns of up to 24% per year. Rhonda Briard was stealing from some clients, and it seems almost every week there's a new case that comes about. And in difficult times, you seem to find more than you do during good times. But even during good times, you find those people who are trying to create a scam. And maybe they don't begin that way. I can remember when I first got into the business, reading about a 55-year-old grandmother who was going to Las Vegas or maybe it was Reno, every 6 months. She was going to Reno every 6 months, gambling, trying to replace the money she was stealing from her clients' accounts. So she would go in 6 months. She was hoping she was going to win. She was hoping she could replace the money she had, in her words, borrowed from her clients. And eventually, she didn't succeed in replacing the money. Eventually, she went to prison for a long time. You know, it's a time in which firms have to be really vigilant about what they're doing, and the big warehouses have some control. You know, we have overhead, we have expenses, and when times get tough, you have only a couple choices. Either you cut back on your standard of living, you draw down on your savings, or you go out and you get more clients. It's pretty simple and straightforward. But there's a temptation for a few, maybe 5 or 10% of brokers, that when times get tough, they begin to take money from clients and do those illegal things. You know, if you look at the case of Rhonda Briard, who has now gone to prison, the first clients she transferred into her firm were transferred legitimately. They came through and their monies moved. The second group, she began to falsify some of the documents and falsified the documents so she could borrow money from their accounts. It's illegal for a financial advisor to borrow money from a client. But she began to do that. And then in the third group, the money never went into their accounts. She simply stole the money. Very similar to what Madoff did. Madoff just simply took the money in, and it never went into client accounts. You know, some begin to do those sort of things, and it begins to just get bigger and bigger again. And for whatever reason it happens, it often comes apart. It may have begun in tough times, but it also comes apart in tough times. But it's a time in which, if it seems too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. You know, there's a difference. When you look at what went on, if you look at Steve Close, he was promising returns of 24% per year. Stanford ran a Ponzi scheme in which, when interest rates were low, he was promising CD rates of up to 10%. Bank CD rates. Bank guaranteed CD rates of 10%. There's nowhere you can get a bank CD rate of 10%. You should know that. Gallian was talking about high quarterly returns. He was beating the market all the time. Wade Cook ran a series of seminars in which he talked about returns of up to 30% per year. 30%, or not per year, per month. I remember I lost a client who had been to one of his seminars, and they came to me, "You're not even doing 30% a year?" He's doing 30% a month. I said, "I don't believe it." That was true. Wade Cook went to prison the second time. First, he was scamming people out of real estate. The second time, in options. You know, those are the scams which are illegal. But there are some things that are being done that I feel may be a scam. Not a scam as we think of it. When you think of a definition of a scam is defined as a fraudulent scheme, and some of those I mentioned, they were frauds. A confidence scheme, similar to the above, but the third is a deceptive act, is also known as a scam. Those are some of the legal things that are going on, and I believe that you, the listener, may be subject to some of those without even knowing it. And experts and honest research people actually promote those same kind of things going on. I think it's to your disadvantage. I think there's myths that we'll come back and talk about right after this commercial break. So don't go away. We've got more to say and more to do.
About Money with Mike Adams will resume in a moment on Business Radio 1300 KKOL. For more information, click on adamsfinancialconcepts.com.
Did you know the 20-year annualized S&P return was 8.19%, while the 20-year annualized return for the average equity mutual fund investor was just 4.67%? That's a gap of 3.52%. It doesn't sound like much now, but it could mean the difference between retiring in comfort and running out of money. For some seniors, a gap that large could cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars and cut their retirement short. Don't run out of money. Call Mike Adams of Adams Financial Concepts today, 206-903-1019, and learn more about how you can, 1, create wealth for retirement, and 2, protect yourself from running out of money. Adams Financial Concepts specializes in creating and maintaining wealth. Call today, 206-903-1019, or log on to adamsfinancialconcepts.com. That's adamsfinancialconcepts.com.
Bible. We're back with more about money. For details on what you hear on today's show, visit adamsfinancialconcepts.com. Now, here again is Mike Adams.
So I've been talking about scams and fraudulent schemes. And the whole point of that is to say there's a lot of things which are almost there. The ones I talked about were illegal. And when you talk about a definition of a scam, there's 3 definitions. One is a fraudulent scheme, and that's the ones that I was talking about. They're illegal, they're dishonest. There's no question about that at all. Second is a confidence game, and that too is illegal and similar to the fraudulent scheme. But the third is a deceptive act, which is also a scam. And I think in some cases there are things that have become accepted as fact that I believe are almost a scam. You've heard it said, you've read, you've heard it from your financial advisor, or you've read it in financial magazines, you've heard it on CNBC, you've seen it in a lot of places, that there's really no difference in fund performance except for the fees. The lower the fee, the better the performance. That's almost a given as a fact. The fact is, it's not true. R.W. Baird looked at fees and looked at funds that outperformed the market. But Janet of Fund X actually looked at funds that had been in existence for 25 years. 10,454 mutual funds and ETFs, but only 269 had survived for 25 years. You know, when you think about it, the Janus 20, for example, was merged into the Janus 40 because it was no longer performing well. And the fund manager changed on that. So there's very few that have survived 25 years, 269 out of 10,454. And she looked at the performance and the fees. And looking at that, there was no relationship at all between the performance and the fees. If you looked at it, some had high fees, some had low fees, but the performance was excellent in both cases. The best performing funds, some low fees, some high fees. It wasn't the fees that were important. It was the performance and the longevity. You know, selecting low fees would not lead to winning, would not lead to beating the market. Selecting for the performance does. But the performance is something that's guessing into the future, whereas fees are concrete. And the data that shows that there's no difference in performance between, that low fees outperform high fees is taking that 10,454 mutual funds and ETFs and looking at and separating out just the low fee funds and looking at high fee funds. And when you break it down in that respect, you have maybe 3,000 fees that have low fees and 3,000 that have high fees, and you'll find a statistical difference between the two. But it's not looking at the small number that have been in existence for a long time. It's looking at some that have been in existence for a year or 2 years that have just beginning to roll along. And R.W. Beard looked at and found 370 funds that had outperformed their benchmark over 10 years. They outperformed by at least 1% on the average over that period of time. There's a feeling that, or a myth that exists, that you can do well by just investing in index funds. Well, you know what? It's difficult to stay with those funds because 100% will go for a long period of time. 100% had underperformance for at least 1 year. 85% had underperformance for 3 straight years. 57% were down at one time, 10% in a year. 25% were down 15 or greater percent. And 25% underperformed by 5% or more in 3 given years. So it's one of those things when you look at mutual funds or money managers in a whole group, it's hard to distinguish the difference in the fees and performance. But that's really true, and that really exists. And there are managers who outperform. You know, if you look at our performance at Adams Financial Concepts, we publish our returns. It's a composite of all the accounts, including those who are no longer with us. And right now our website's being rebuilt, and I'm going to be talking about that in the second half because it has something to do with cyber hackers. That's later in the program, but the returns are still there. And within a few days, we'll have the returns for the third quarter posted. We're just verifying that. And if you look at those returns, while I've performed as well as the Standard & Poor's 500 for the last, since inception, we've had better years and we've had worse years. And the whole point of this is the Standard & Poor's this year is up over 18%. That's almost 20%. If your portfolio isn't up 18% this year, then you have to ask the question, has your portfolio doubled in the last 5 years? Has it gone from 100,000 to 204,000? Or whatever the relationship is. Has your portfolio doubled in the last 5 years? And if you can't say that, has it increased 2.5-fold in the last 10 years, having gone through the 2007 crash? Those are the numbers for the Standard & Poor's. Studies have shown that individual investors, whether they have a financial advisor or not, are not achieving those kind of returns. Whether you're doing it for yourself, you should be looking at how you do. If you're doing it with a financial advisor, you're paying a financial advisor to get performance. If you're not seeing your account double in the last 5 years, if you're not seeing your account up 18 to 20% so far this year, you have to question whether you're overpaying the advisor. You may be paying a low fee, but you may be, with that low fee, overpaying. In baseball terms, and I like baseball if you've been listening to the program, you don't pay a hitter who's hitting 200 what you pay a hitter who's hitting 318. The person who's hitting 318 gets paid a lot more than the hitter who's hitting 300. In football terms, we're in football season. You don't pay a top lineman the same amount as you pay a person covering on kickoffs. And you certainly don't pay a lineman the amount you're paying a good quarterback. In TV terms, you may be paying for a supporting actor and getting a bit player. If you're making fees and you're not achieving 18 to 20% this year, or doubling your account in the last 5 years, or growing your account 2.5-fold in the last 10 years, then you're overpaying. Or if you're doing it yourself, you should really consider getting somebody that will achieve those kind of returns. Anyway, that wraps up that segment. I want to introduce my guest. She has a sweet story to tell. It's Erin Andrews of Indie Chocolate. Welcome to the program, Erin.
Thank you, Mike. Glad to be here.
So let's start with your background.
Yes. So I started in 2008 teaching my kids how chocolate grows on trees in Belize. And from there, started my first bean-to-bar chocolate company in Belize.
Well, let's go back even before that.
All right.
How did you get to Belize?
How did I get to Belize? Family vacation. But before that, I was actually a senior manager at PricewaterhouseCoopers before I left for a 7-year hiatus as an at-home parent. And at the end of that, I was really ready to do something new and different. And a family vacation to Belize turned into a chocolate company down there.
Usually a family vacation is 1 to 2 weeks. So tell me that you were there for a couple days and decided to start it.
Yeah, actually it was we flew in that night by the time we arrived, and the next morning we started on some chocolate making steps, and the person I was working with on that step about learning how to make chocolate said, I've always wanted to start a chocolate factory. And I looked over at my husband and I said, I think this is what I'm going to do now. And so that was the beginning of my journey into the world of chocolate.
So how long did it take you? How long were you in Belize? You went on a family vacation?
We went on a family vacation for 2 weeks. The first week was our chocolate education. And the second week was a week with my sister, her family, and my parents on the beaches of Belize when they were checking my forehead to make sure I wasn't crazy.
And then you came home?
I came home, and 2 years later, I decided I just need something closer to home here in Seattle and started Indie Chocolate.
So wait a minute. You didn't come home after the 2 weeks. You stayed in Belize.
No, actually, I did come home because I had 2 young daughters in school. The youngest one had just started kindergarten, so I needed to be home, but we would go back and forth between my partners and I on the Belize business as far as getting coverage there.
And then you came back to Seattle and started Indie Chocolate.
I did, yes.
So Indie, how did you pick the name Indie?
Indie is my oldest daughter. She's the one that asked about if she could learn about how chocolate grows on trees when we were in Belize.
Okay. So Belize had cacao beans.
Yes. Lots and lots of actually cacao, and that's what got me started. And I remember my first pod as if it was yesterday.
So when you talk about a pod, you're talking about a thing that has several beans in it.
Yes, generally around 50. per pod.
So that's a pretty big pod.
Yeah, they can be. They can fit in your hand or be bigger than your head. So there's quite a bit of variety that I love.
So we're going to come back and talk more about chocolate and more about indie chocolate. Don't go away. We're coming to a commercial break. Stay with us. We've got a sweet part of the story to tell.
More About Money coming up with Mike Adams on Business Radio 1300 KKOL. For more information, click on adamsfinancialconcepts.com.
Creating and maintaining wealth has been the specialty of Adams Financial Concepts for over 20 years. Every portfolio managed by Adams Financial Concepts is customized to fit each particular client's objectives and risk tolerance. The client's interest always comes first in portfolio decisions. Call Mike Adams today at 206-903-1019 or log on to adamsfinancialconcepts.com to check out their AFC performance. They welcome your review. That's adamsfinancialconcepts.com.
Now we return to About Money. There's more information waiting for you at adamsfinancialconcepts.com. Here again is your host, Mike Adams.
So I'm here with Erin Andrews. We're talking about indie chocolate. So let's talk about chocolate. If you go into a store, you see Hershey's candy bars. You also see some expensive chocolate. So it seems to say to me that there's a difference in quality of chocolates.
That's a great point. Yes. I think that one of the things that really is a differentiator is when you look at ingredients. And I think that one of the things that I like to say is that there's never a big enough bag of M&Ms in the world. And that's because what you really want and when you're really asking for chocolate is theobromine. And there's so many other ingredients in some of the mass-produced chocolate, things like soy lecithin, things like that, that it's not really as satisfying. I concentrate on a dark chocolate based on really fabulous tasting beans, add a little cocoa butter, a little sugar, and that's it. Because I really want people to taste cacao because that's really the part that is so rewarding both on our tongue and into our systems as well.
So when you talk about beans, I understand that there are some beans that are limited in quality, but are mass-produced or mass-grown, and there's others that are limited in terms of quantity, but have much higher quality. Is that a correct statement?
That's spot on. What I'm always going for are the very, very rare, very elusive, very tasty beans. I'm never going after the mass commodity. And if I were to give you a bean of each, you would understand why. One you'd spit out immediately and probably curse me. And then the other one is something that I can really make delicious chocolate out of. And those are what I search the world for.
So, the whole idea of chocolate is something that's fairly new when you think about the history of mankind. Because we've only had chocolate in the Western, well, if you take the European world, since maybe the 1500s, right?
So actually, we had this person everybody might know by the name of Christopher Columbus, which was the first European. But it was really Hernan Cortez that was really credited with the European discovery, if you will, of chocolate. And it's been in the Americas for a long time, in South and Central America. But it actually had to come to North America back from Europe. So that the discovery came to Europe and then back to North America of chocolate.
But when they began first doing chocolate, it was not like what we know chocolate. I was in Boston for a family vacation this year and went to one of the chocolate factories, or if you could call it a factory, a cottage industry, where they were actually producing chocolate the way it was done in the 1600s, where you take a big block and shave it off, drop it into water, and you almost drink the chocolate.
So drinking chocolate is actually the history of chocolate. I collect chocolate pots for making drinking chocolate from around the world. And so actually the first one I have is the Mayan influenced. It's actually a reproduction with the glyphs. And that was a spicy drink. It was a foamy drink. They like to pour it from vessel to vessel so that they could really get a froth. Then there was the European influence, still having the frothing happening with what we call a molinillo, which is a wooden stirring stick. And then the Enlightenment of Europe period of European history, in which it was sweetened and added things like vanilla and milk. And so it became much more of the decadent, very enjoyable drink that we have today.
I can remember we were in Paris, and we do a thing called Paris Walks. And they have a tour where you visit 5 different patisseries and taste different chocolates. And one was the first patisserie where chocolate was introduced in France. And they told the story about the Queen of France at the time, who loved chocolate. And by the time she was 20 years old, her teeth fell out. And they claimed that it was because she was doing chocolate.
Well, now they say cacao's the sniffing drug before raves and parties. I don't know about doing chocolate that way, but I do understand that she did enjoy it, to drink it quite a bit as well, yeah.
And so did the cardinal. The cardinal was faced with what to do about chocolate and what to do about wine, whether to make both illegal in the church or to make them legal. And he enjoyed both chocolate and wine. And, the fact is, I like both chocolate and wine and together.
I do too. It actually, they're a very nice, they work well together. And we get to work with chocolate in lots of different ways, including with our neighbors. Is a brewery. So actually they use our nibs, which is the inside of the cocoa bean, to make beer as well. So not only does wine and chocolate go really well together, but we work with our neighbors Old Stowe Brewery to make beer from the origins of chocolate as well.
So let's talk about indie chocolate now.
Yes.
We spend a lot of time talking all around chocolate, but let's talk about what you do at Indie Chocolate.
Yeah, so we started in 2010, and in 2012 for Christmas, we did a pop-up store in Pike Place Market, and it was a great success, and so we really knew, and it really confirmed for me that I wanted to do bean-to-bar chocolate, actually roasting our beans all the way through to finished chocolate, as well as a cafe in Pike Place Market. Because it's part of the local tradition of meeting the producer in Pike Place Market and the very foundations of Pike Place Market. So I had no idea it was going to take nearly as long as it was going to, and it's probably a good thing I didn't know. But this summer I opened up finally, after 5 years in the market, our cafe as well as our chocolate factory, all behind glass, so everyone can watch the entire process of chocolate being made.
So when you say cafe, what do you mean?
Well, that drinking chocolate. We have that, but we're also in Pike Place Market in Seattle, one of the best places in the world for coffee. So how could I not go for one of my other favorite beverages? And so we brought in, with our cafe, we brought in La Colombe coffee, so that we're able to serve great espresso, coffee-based beverages, and of course marry 2 of my favorite things, coffee and chocolate together, in some really fabulous mochas.
So it would be a great place to visit as people are doing their Christmas shopping, correct?
Absolutely. We've got some nice and warm and toasty things to keep you rejuvenated when you give us a visit. And we can even torch some fresh mole marshmallows or chocolate chai tea marshmallows that we make as well.
So tell us about what's on the menu.
So actually, when envisioning this so many years ago, I realized that one of the things that I wanted was really to have a place, having been an at-home parent for 7 years, I really wanted a place of community. And so we have what we call our cafe and factory, but also our gathering space. And so I wanted something that was both savory as well as sweet. And so we have a retail store, but on our menu we have savory options like sandwiches and quiches and salads, so that you can balance that and stay for a while and play and learn at Indie Chocolate and gather in our gathering space. So we have everything from quiches and sandwiches to decadent things like our chocolate bars, our drinks, and things that we can drizzle chocolate over. We're going to be doing more and more of that now that we're in our new location, everything from croissants and cookies. And this summer we're going to be looking forward to rolling out some of the fresh produce that Washington is so very fortunate to have, like raspberries and blueberries and all kinds of fun things.
Makes me very, very hungry just to hear about it. I'm ready.
Excellent. Let's go.
It's too bad we don't have samples.
I think I was negligent in duty and derelict in duty. I think, Mike, you're going to have to come to Pike Place Markets and into Indie Chocolate so I can rectify that error on my part about not having chocolate here in the studio.
I can absolutely guarantee I will be there.
Excellent.
I will bring grandchildren.
Awesome.
I will bring children.
Yay.
And we'll come and we'll maybe have some chocolate and then maybe a sandwich and then maybe more chocolate and then more chocolate.
I like the sounds of this. Well, we like to do things different with our chocolate as well. So we have a lot of things that are really differentiated, like the fact that we actually I started this second business of Indie Chocolate with our lotions and lip balms, which I made for my youngest daughter because she had some reactions to body care. So we've got some really great lotions and lip balms and soaps, all based on cocoa butter, which is inside the cocoa bean. And then we do spice rubs, which we'll be having more and more dishes with our spice rubs inside the cafe, and our teas as well. So we have 6 different types of chocolate teas that we do.
And I assume you have a website where people can order.
We certainly do. And actually, we've been having a fun time with Cyber Monday this week. So it's Indie Chocolate, which is INDI chocolate.com. And it's like the word India without the A is how we say Indie Chocolate. And that's named after my daughter.
And where in Pike's Place are you located?
I am located in the brand new market front on Western Avenue. So if you haven't yet made it to the new market front, I would highly recommend come on in. We'll show you how chocolate's made. And we always love Stump the Chump questions on chocolate as well, so don't be shy. We love to talk chocolate.
That's great. And I haven't been there, but I will be there. I guarantee that.
I'm looking forward to it.
I love chocolate. You know?
That's a good thing. We all need to have some joy and love of chocolate.
I love chocolate. I love food. I mean, sometimes I look like I like chocolate and food.
We all should enjoy and partake of all, as they say, all things in moderation, even moderation.
Well, thanks for being on the program. It's very interesting. A very sweet story, as I said in the beginning.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Coming up after the commercial break, we've got more to talk about. We're going to be talking about cyber attacks, cybersecurity, and some of the things that are going on. I have some personal experience with that. I think we protected our clients very well, considering all the other things that are going on. So stick around, and I'll be back very shortly.
Stay tuned. About Money returns in a moment with Mike Adams here on Business Radio 1300 KKOL. For more information, click on adamsfinancialconcepts.com.
How do you picture retirement? House on the beach, small farm in the country, traveling the world with your spouse. The one thing you don't picture is running out of money. Retirement dreams are shattered all too often by poor investment choices, sending many retirees back to work. If you think the job market is tough now, try entering it after you've retired. Don't run out of money. Start planning now. Call Mike Adams of Adams Financial Concepts today at 206-903-1019 and learn more about how you can create wealth for retirement and, probably most importantly, protect yourself from running out of money. Adams Financial Concepts specializes in creating and maintaining wealth. Call today, 206-903-1019, or log on to adamsfinancialconcepts.com. That's adamsfinancialconcepts.com.
About Money continues. Remember the website adamsfinancialconcepts.com. Here's Mike.
So, I started saying at the beginning of the program, we're rebuilding our website. We've been cyber attacked, and I can say AFC, Adams Financial Concepts, has not had any customer compromised. When you think about that, you know, Experian had hundreds of millions of people that were hacked. Yahoo, Uber, Sony, And the result is that hundreds of millions of records are picked up. People pick up Social Security numbers, addresses, phone numbers, email addresses. IDs are stolen, personal ID theft. It's a big thing. One thing I did not realize until I went to a cybersecurity workshop was that you can buy a stolen credit card with the number, the expiration, and the thing on the back. You can buy that on the internet for $13. You want to buy 100 of them? You can buy 100, $13 a pop. Almost nothing is impossible for people to get to. I went to a Fidelity conference, and they described one guy, or maybe it's an entire group. No one's really sure. But they were making about $30 million a year from hacking into clients' accounts. And the way it went was like this. They would hack into somebody's computer. They would get the phone number, and then they would get their account information. They would send an email to Fidelity saying they wanted to send funds, part of the account, to a third party, an offshore bank, maybe to Malaysia. They wanted to send it wasn't a significant amount. It was maybe 20% of the account or 15% of the account. So if it was 100% of the account, that would show up really in a big way. But it was a portion of the account. They wanted to send that off. And for a big account, Fidelity has people that are there that will take the information and they'll call the client to verify that the client actually requested the transfer of funds. This group hacks into the phone and they do call forwarding so that when the Fidelity person called, they reached the hacker who said, of course, he ordered the transfer. So the funds are transferred to somewhere overseas, for example, Malaysia, which is way after hours in Malaysia. So it goes into the bank. There's no human there. And an order is given to the bank there to transfer the funds from Malaysia to somewhere else. And also a place where the bank is closed for the day. Then it's transferred to another bank, to another bank, to another bank until eventually it just disappears. That was a significant person and really on everybody's radar. But, when you look at it, they're also focusing on smaller accounts as well. When I was at a compliance conference 2 years ago, one of the SEC presenters, Securities and Exchange Commission enforcement people presenting, asked how many firms had been hacked. And it was all the compliance people who should know. And about half of us raised our hands. I've been hacked. I know. And he said, the reality is the other half who didn't raise your hands, you've been hacked. You just don't know. They used to ask people, have you been hacked? And very few would say yes. Now it's almost everyone is hacked. Everyone's had a cyber attack. It's only a matter of how many and how successful. Willie Sutton was a bank robber. And they used to ask Willie Sutton, why did he rob banks? And he said, I rob banks because that's where the money is. The hackers focus on banks and brokerage houses because, like Willie Sutton, they know that that's where the money is. And don't you find it absolutely amazing when firms find out that they've been hacked, data's been breached, but the management sits on the information for days or weeks or months? In some cases, over a year. That really bothers me when I think about that. I said that Adams Financial Concepts had been hacked. We detected within minutes that we'd been hacked and immediately began to take action. At that time, I was with Fidelity as a custodian, and I've now moved to Interactive Brokers, and I'll tell you why in a bit and explain why. We're much safer at Interactive Brokers, but we were at Fidelity at the time, and what we did is we immediately notified Fidelity that we'd been hacked. We wanted no funds dispersed from any client account unless I personally authorized it myself. I wanted to assure that there had been no funds sent out from the time in which we assumed that the hack was made and the time that I made the call, which was only a few minutes. And no funds had gone out. The second thing is I asked Fidelity to change every account number so that every client had a different account number. So even if the hackers had hacked information and obtained account numbers, those numbers would all be bogus by the time we were finished. Fidelity wasn't really excited about going through that effort, but after a while, maybe a couple hours, they began to change the account numbers, and within 2 days, every client had a new account number. At the same time, we made an all-out effort with everybody, all the employees at Adams Financial Concepts, calling clients to let them know we'd been hacked. We asked them to make sure that they cleaned their computers and to be sure that nothing was hacked into their computers. We recommended they actually clean, and we recommended that they let us know if there were any problems with their identification. We told them as well that any disbursements would have to come through me. So I would verify any disbursements. They could let me know if they were going to take money out of the account. But for a period of several months, I had to personally authorize every single disbursement that was made. The impact of all that was no money was lost. To the best of our knowledge, we had no client whose identity was stolen, and we've gone since 2009 without a breach. We're frequently attacked. We have the name financial in our name, so we know that we're attacked. We know that that happens, and we know that people hack our website. Our website is completely independent from our client information. So people could hack into the website, have a complete control of the website, they'd never find out. There's no client information at all. If you think about how most firms operate, you go to their website, and it's from their website that you go into your account, not at Adams Financial Concepts. There's no connection. But we've been hacked, and we went to Interactive Brokers in 2010. Our hack with Fidelity was 2009. And we did it for a number of really good reasons. But we're in the process of rebuilding our website. We're not going to have client information on the website. We're not going to have anybody that can access client information on the website. The website is simply for information purposes, to put blogs, to put our performance, and to let you know about the radio programs and what we're doing. It's not going to have any client information. Interactive Brokers has double authentication. It has much safer access than we had at Fidelity. And I run out of timer, so I can't tell you exactly what it is. We'll have to visit that another time. But until next week, have a very good weekend, and I will be back next week to talk more about money.
You've been listening to About Money with Mike Adams, a registered investment advisor. If you'd like more information about what you heard today, or about Mike's investment philosophy and strategy, or if you want Mike to evaluate your own portfolio, click on adamsfinancialconcepts.com. That's adamsfinancialconcepts.com. The information shared on the preceding program was for educational purposes only, and any investment advice given may not be suitable for all investors. Join us again for more About Money with Mike Adams here on Business Radio 1300 KKOL.
The preceding program was sponsored by Adams Financial Concepts. Creating and maintaining wealth has been the specialty of Adams Financial Concepts for over 20 years. Every portfolio managed by Adams Financial Concepts is customized to fit each particular client's objectives and risk tolerance. The client's interest always comes first in portfolio decisions. Call Mike Adams today at 206-903-1019 or log on to adamsfinancialconcepts.com to check out their AFC performance. They welcome your review. That's adamsfinancialconcepts.com. The following program sponsored by